Hi, my name is Josh Petter. I'm the urban forest planner at the City of Burien, aka the Tree Guy. I'm here today to talk about the proposed land use tree code, or Burien Municipal Code 19.25. I'm going to go over the key points of the code, but if you want to review the whole draft, we have one online. We have a public review draft available. Trees provide an array of benefits. They help to clean our air, they remove pollutants from stormwater, they help to build community, and they provide shade and help to keep our urban area cool, among many other things. A little background. Burien's current canopy cover goal is 40% canopy dispersed equitably across the entire city. In order to achieve this additional canopy, Burien would have to add approximately 39,000 trees, which would add $7.3 million in ecological benefits. This map on the left is a map of canopy cover from the Green Burien Urban Forest Stewardship Plan. This was conducted in 2017 and found that Burien had approximately 30% canopy cover. Canopy cover is if you were flying over the city in an airplane and looked straight down, it'd be the percent of area that's covered by trees. You can see that these dark green areas here are correspondent to high tree density. This map on the right was produced by American Forests. It's a tree equity map, which combines canopy cover with a variety of socioeconomic factors. The dark green areas are high tree equity scores or good tree equity scores. The orange and lighter areas are lower or bad tree equity scores. And so you can see kind of on this left map that these dark green areas typically correspond with these dark green areas. A key takeaway of these maps is that the canopy cover in Burien is not equitably distributed. We have a variety of current code related to trees. Chapter 1238 regulates street trees. Those are typically the trees between the sidewalk and the street, or the planter strip. Chapter 19.25 is tree retention and landscaping. That's largely private property and what we are proposing revisions to. Chapter 19.40 applies to vegetation in critical areas such as streams, wetlands, and steep slopes. And then section 20.30.040 is shoreline management areas. Some of the issues of our current code is that we are losing canopy cover, and we're trying to go from 30% to 40% canopy cover. We're not prioritizing the preservation of large trees, which provide more benefits and are harder to replace than small trees. There's little protection for trees that are outside of critical areas, and there's no ability to require replacement beyond what would fit on the site. So, for example, if 10 trees were required for replacement and only 5 could fit on the site, those other 5 trees are not currently being planted. The overall goals of the tree code are to increase tree retention, incentivize tree retention with alternatives to development standards. So there's not just punitive measures, but we also find ways that make development and tree retention work. Require tree replacement wherever feasible. And part of the strategy to increase canopy cover from 30% to 40% in an equitable manner. Some of the key components that need to be in there in order to reach that 40% canopy cover is must have teeth, such as fines, stop work order, penalties, and restoration. Must be flexible. Lots are many different sizes, and the location and quality of the trees can vary considerably. Sometimes you might have a large tree in the center. Sometimes you might have a large tree kind of on the end or edge of the property. So you have to be flexible in our code. Should increase canopy cover equitably across the city, and should prioritize the retention of large and healthy trees, which cannot be easily replaced and provide substantially more benefits than small trees. This diagram up here shows equality, or 2 equally sized boxes. The taller person is able to reach the apple, but the shorter person is unable to reach the apple. This one on the right shows 2 boxes sized so that both people can reach the apple, and that's equity. And so here, a key takeaway is really that we want the urban forest benefits to be equitably distributed and everyone to have equitable access to those benefits. The proposed code on a very high level divides tree removal into situations where no permit is required and those where a permit is required. Removal of small trees or those under 6 inches in diameter at 4.5 feet would not require a permit. That would be trees that are not significant. No permit is required under this code for critical areas, shorelines, public property. Those are all regulated under separate codes. And no permit would be required if a tree is directly conflicting with a utility. For example, if a tree had fallen on power lines. A permit is required for development. That would be a major tree removal. And a minor tree removal is often required when no development is occurring. And I'll go into a major and minor tree removal permit in more depth later on in the presentation. We're proposing a new exceptional tree designation. This adds additional protection for trees that are 30 inches diameter or greater at 4.5 feet above the ground. There's also a smaller list of trees that are exceptional at smaller sizes, and those are predominantly native tree species or tree species that don't typically get to 30 inches diameter. The rationale behind this is that these trees cannot be replaced in our lifetime, sometimes even in our children's lifetime, because these trees are often over 100 years old, and they also provide a lot more benefits than smaller trees. So in addition to the exceptional designation, we want to consider size as much as possible. And to illustrate that, so like a large tree is going to provide more benefits than a small tree, but so too is a medium tree going to provide more benefits than a small tree. And so under our current code, in a lot of developments, we're requiring developers to retain 30% of the trees that are on a property. If this is the parcel here, and there are 10 trees on the property represented by these circles, and these circles are proportional to the tree size, to meet the requirement, 3 trees would have to be retained. In this case, the 3 smallest trees could be retained to meet that 30% requirement. And this really is not getting at increasing canopy cover and ensuring that benefits of the urban forest are equitably distributed. In order to consider size across the board, we're proposing implementing a tree credit system for both significant and exceptional trees. So a tree between 6 and 10 inches would be worth 1 credit, and that would increase as the size of the tree increase, all the way up to 7 credits for trees that are 30 inches and all exceptional trees. And so here we're really trying to roughly equate the benefits to the size of the tree and incentivize the retention of larger trees. So in single family and multifamily development, there would be 1 credit per 1,000 square feet of developable area. And then for commercial, industrial, and landscape categories C, D, and F, there'd be 0.15 credits per 1,000 square feet of developable area. And so the rationale behind that is that we want greater density in the commercial and industrial areas, and we actually want a greater density of trees in the residential areas, because that's where we really need the benefits that the trees provide. So putting this all together, we are proposing replacing the retention percentage with a tree credit system. So let's imagine that this is a 7,000 square foot lot. In a 7,000 square foot lot at 1 credit per 1,000 square feet, this lot would need 7 tree credits in order to be compliant. This could be met by 1 tree worth 7 credits, or 7 trees worth 1 credit, or any combination between. So there's really a lot of flexibility in this code while still trying to require the similar amount of benefits. So non-development tree removal, you need to retain exceptional trees, and you need to maintain a minimum required tree credit. If the lot is in excess of that required minimum tree credit, there will be an allowance for significant tree removal per 12 months, as well as a cap over 3 years. So a lot could remove, under 5,000 square feet, could remove 1 tree per 12, significant tree per 12 months, or 2 trees over 3 years. And that increases as the size of the lot increases. A permit would be required to remove any exceptional tree, or a permit would be required to remove in excess of this allowance. Development tree removal would be required to retain all exceptional trees as well as meet the minimum required tree credits. In development, at least half of the requirement tree credits must be met from trees on site, provided there are trees that can meet that requirement. There's also additional tree protection standards to ensure that those that are retained are protected for the duration of the project, and additional tree replacement standards when trees cannot be replaced on site. So we are adding tree replacement standards both in development and in non-development projects to help increase our canopy cover. We're also focusing on how those trees are planted and improving our specifications there to increase survival ratings for those trees. We're also focusing on the right tree for the right place. So that includes things like not planting large trees under power lines and making sure that we're not selecting noxious tree species or problematic tree species. So there are greater benefits for those trees. We are adding in a fee in lieu, which has actually already been adopted by the City Council through a separate resolution. That'll be $700 per tree, and that'll allow, in situations where, for example, a developer can't retain trees or they can't replant on site, this would be the third option and allow us to replant those trees somewhere else. This fee in lieu will be used for things in the Green Burien Partnership Urban Forest Stewardship Plan, or to improve tree equity throughout the city. And that could include stuff like tree maintenance or tree planting. Noxious species have a high economic and ecological cost. On the right here, you can see ivy climbing a tree. This can obscure defects or actually increase the likelihood of a tree failure. So we really want to mitigate the impact of that. So we're adding things that prohibit prohibit planting noxious species in new development, as well as requiring removal in certain development situations. We're currently in an outreach and input phase. We're surveying residents. We'll be bringing this to Planning Commission starting July 13th. We're doing internal review from staff and have been in conversation with developers. And this is all to ensure that we have the best code possible for this community. Some of the key takeaways are that development and tree retention can be done in concert. We need to preserve large trees and increase canopy cover in an equitable manner. And trees make Burien a more livable and healthier city. Learn more about our tree code, visit burienwa.gov/tree regulations.